All right, welcome into another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. Today, we're going to be talking about your Kings win streak. Kopitar and Fiala heating it up. Zadorov's comments about the 1-3-1 and the playoff picture coming back here. Get in the chat, like and subscribe. You know what to do. Let's go. All right, the boys are back. The boys are back today. I am not officially unpacked, but I am moved. All my stuff is in one location. So it's good to be back to talk to you guys. Great job last week holding it down. Good episode there. But how you guys doing?
Doing good. Yeah, same old. How you doing, Joe?
Good. Prepping for a trip to Orlando with the family here as the older son has spring break next week. So we're going to be off and running, and it's our first trip like with the planes and everything with the kids. So
Ooh.
I don't know.
Exciting.
Exciting is one word for it, but we are looking forward to seeing how this goes. So
is that a Disney World trip or is that just Orlando trip?
We are going to Orlando. We're staying at a Marriott resort, but we will be partaking Magic Kingdom on one of the days. So
okay.
Awesome.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Thank you.
I did an Orlando trip with my family when I was younger, and we did like the Disney thing. And I have to say, like, we did all that, but like the best part of that trip is we went to Cape Canaveral. And that was awesome. So I don't know if you're planning on doing something like that, but I would definitely look into it. It was awesome.
So we're at a pretty kid-friendly place. So I think a lot of it will probably hang out where we're at. We'll do Magic Kingdom, and then we'll see how that goes. And then to determine what we may do in the latter part of the week. So we'll see. But we're looking forward to it and very curious about like how it's going to go. But we'll see.
Awesome.
It'll be good. It'll
be
good.
Look forward to hearing about it.
Oh yeah. Brandon, so how is the move? I know you're not unpacked, but
it's good. Yeah, I mean, I got the major stuff done, mounted my TV, which is like I think every guy will understand. Like it doesn't feel like you're moved in until your TV's mounted in.
That's like number one, right? Get the TV and the internet.
So it's like I got it all moved, and then on I think it was Friday night or whatever, I just got a little spur in my boots or whatever, and I was up till like 3:00 mounting this bad boy. Like I was like, I gotta get this done, and watched an episode of Seinfeld, and it just felt right, like it just felt good, Everything else is gonna fall into place. So, but Noah's plugging you, Russ, saying that you had a busy day today. You were on Locked On as well, man. How'd that go?
It was good. Always love chatting it up with Eddie. Saw him at the game against Tampa. Love talking hockey with Eddie Garcia. So go check it out, guys. It's good conversation.
Oh boy.
Well, we got quite a few people in the chat. Noah was the first one here today at 4:34. Hi, everyone. Get in the chat, like and subscribe. Size, like it up, people. Good evening, y'all. Ready to talk some Kings hockey? Dan here with a Let's Go Kings. Cy back with that intro music. All right. Carter scores. The three amigos are back. Hit that like button. Random stuff says, hell yeah. Carl in red. So Carl is back skating, it looks like. So that's good. Well, not only is Carl in red, but the Kings are red hot with 4 straight wins. And they are taking advantage of that schedule right now. Takeathon has them as the easiest schedule going forward. So they got to capitalize on those points, secure their spot in the playoffs, which is pretty much guaranteed at this point, just the outcome there. What did you guys think about this win streak? I know you guys talked a little bit about the other wins last week, but how are the Kings playing most recently, and what are you guys seeing, Russ?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of going back a couple weeks ago when I looked at that 3-game road trip that started with St. Louis, Chicago, and Dallas, even like that whole road trip just felt wrong and just felt like they weren't really playing well, even though they got that 6 nothing win in Chicago. Followed that with the Dallas game. You still were kind of waiting to see this Kings team get back to prime form. Then when they came back home, got Chicago again. Okay, you get that big win, 6-2. Good to see, but that was also kind of expected. In the Minnesota Wild games, like, okay, we got a lot of fortunate balances, but 6-0's 6-0, so you get nothing to frown about there. So confidence building high, but then you had Tampa Bay come in, and that was the game that everybody kind of looked at. And even with the lost lead that they gave up in the third period, giving up the late 2 goals, I just love the effort that they played with the entire game, and that carried over into the game in Vancouver. So you're starting to see a team that's not only playing well, but they're showing like an effort that gives you confidence that this team can be successful in the playoffs. And especially with the healthy Victor Arvidsson in the fold, that's going to help Jim Hiller's lineup decisions going forward. So, I mean, you see some depth starting to take place, and it's been proving some success now for the last few.
Yeah, I was asked on Twitter what some of the numbers were, kind of analytically, I guess, in the 4-game win streak. It actually wasn't very good. Well, I again was surprised because they're a 4-game win streak, and they weren't very good. And I said last week, I'm like, and I'm at the point, guys, the Kings are in the playoffs. Like, forget all this like hype or what. They're in the playoffs, okay? Whether they finish third in the division or whether they finish second in the wild card, they're going to make the playoffs. I don't care so much about results. Like, I want results in the sense that I want the guys to feel good about themselves. I want the vibes to be good, all that stuff. Like, you want them to pick that up. But I want to play well. I think I said last week, I'd rather they, get goalied in a game, but if they're playing well, like, I trust that, okay, like they got it figured out. And I mean, so there's 2 ways to look at this. They've taken advantage of a couple of these teams are not very good teams, Chicago, Minnesota, and they beat them up despite well, Chicago, they were very much better than Chicago, but I can't, I said, I'm not going to get too high or low on any of these results. Same thing with Edmonton. People are going to hype up this Edmonton game so big, and it almost doesn't matter. Like, and to me, like, it matters because you this is a likely first round opponent, so there's going to be high energy. Like, I don't mean to say it doesn't matter. It's just like, in the grand scheme, you're going to see him in 2 weeks. So what does this game really matter, right? And when I look at that Vancouver game, and it's just like, it's a gritty, gutty win, and that you need those, and you need to do those sometimes, and that is important to, like, when you don't have your best to win those games. But I'm going to be honest, like, if you're playing with a 33% expected goal share and you're getting out chanced 20-9, you're going to lose a series if you play like that. So it's good to get that win. It's good to dig in. Big game from Talbot, like, that's great. But 2 of the last 3 games have been sub 40% in expected goals. That's a little scary to me, especially, Vancouver, Minnesota. Like, so all that to say, I'm not getting too high on the results. I'm also not getting too low on the performance. Like, I very much am not happy with, I don't like getting caved in. Like, I just don't like it. I don't think it's a sustainable thing for a series, especially when you're going to be going up against Edmonton. We've seen this 2 years in a row now, getting caved in over a series. You'll pick off a couple of games, you won't win the series. So that's where I'm at with it. It's like, okay, I'm still kind of, as Daryl Sutter used to say, park and ride. Like, I'm looking ahead to, okay, it's Thursday, Edmonton. When that one's over, on to the next one, and then let's just see what happens. But I would like to see them actually play a little bit better hockey, and them kind of dictating some of the play a little bit more. But we'll see how things go.
It is kind of curious, though. Sorry, Brandon. It's kind of funny, though, because Joe, everybody should go read Joe's article on how the teams played under Hiller. It was great. But it's kind of funny because you kind of compare this team and specifically this win streak and how they played, and everything seems so daisies and dandelions everywhere because how they played, and they're getting the big wins against Tampa Bay and Vancouver. But you look at those numbers and you kind of compare them to the numbers in January, and it's like you would think, like, okay, they were winning games in January based off those numbers, and they're losing games now. But I think it just points to, maybe is it or I'll just ask you, Joe, do you think it's just more or less like luck that's starting to come back and be a little bit fortunate on the Kings side? Or do you think they're maybe, and also some of these games they're getting leads early on and kind of standing back a little bit? What do you think is going on?
two things. So that's because we talked about it when we were on Russ. We were on All the King's Men, and it was kind of the early part of that bad stretch.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
like, you know,
Shooting percentage was a big talk, and yeah.
Percentage. And if you look, and in that article I wrote, and thank you, by the way, in that article I wrote, like there's rolling averages from Evolving Hockey of a shooting percentage, and look when it dips, and then look when it shoots up. So it's like, it's not, this is why people do believe a lot in like the PDO stuff and regression, because things tend to find their way back to the mean. Not all the time, but more often than not, you find their way back to kind of roughly average in the grand scheme of things. And so go look at that article and just look at the graphs, and it almost coincides right with when pretty much Hiller took over. The Kings are getting, I don't know if it was they're getting they have the second best save percentage in the NHL under Hiller. Now listen, I'm a hashtag goalies guy. Jim or Cam Talbot, David Rittich doing great. If we're being honest with each other, do we think we're going to get 930 save percentage out of these goalies in playoffs against an Edmonton, say? I think it's a tall ask. Now, they could be 910. They could be perfectly fine, like 910, 912. That's above average. Is that enough if you don't score? I'm skeptical. So, Russ, I think a lot of this is just like, you know, you're right. The numbers, when you look at the numbers in January, the underlying stats weren't bad at all. Really, it's just they went from being like an average shooting percentage team to the worst, and they went from being a decent goaltending team to bottom 5, bottom 10, and now all of a sudden, shooting percentage is better recently. Still bottom 10 in the league. So, like that's just what the Kings are. They just are not going to be a high shooting percentage team, but the goaltending. You know, and if you look at the way that they're playing, this is how you win these games. If you want to sustain winning by being caved in is maybe being harsh, but by allowing way more chances than you're getting. How about that? If you're going to win games that way, you need elite goaltending. So if you're going to tell me, yeah, the Kings are going to get 935 save percentage from Talbot and Rittich in playoffs, okay, then you know what? Play on. this will work. But I just think you're asking a lot of any goalie, not even just Talbot and Rittich. Like I said, that's number 2 in the league, only behind Hellebuck. So that I think Russ, I hate to always just say, well, I said this on All the King's Men, and is it so easy to just say, well, the pucks aren't going in and maybe they're getting a few less saves, but then here we are a couple months later, it's like, well, not playing great, but a few more pucks are going in and they're getting a lot more saves. It's amazing what happens when you get a lot of saves.
I'm just looking at it this way in the last 4 games, and since Arvidsson's been back, and I'm looking now that we know pretty much who our opponent's going to be. It's a high percentage chance it's going to be Edmonton again. Yeah. What are the things that we were asking of this team going into the season in order to beat Edmonton, and are we accomplishing those things? And to me, and I tweeted this out, I think one of the biggest keys to winning this next series is going to be the PLD line. So how is Fiala, PLD, and Arvidsson playing together? Or how is PLD and Arvidsson playing together? So are they playing well? Are they not playing well? It seems like they're playing pretty well. Are we going to take advantage of our power play? Because Edmonton is a ticky-tack team. They're going to hit you in the back of the knees. They're going to get penalties. And are you going to be able to take advantage of it? The power play looks a lot better with Arvidsson on the ice. It looks more fluid. It looks more balanced. So I think those 2 things for me are the main things that I've been looking for is, are we going to be more consistent to where we can throw those waves that we talk about, consistently on the ice? And then are we going to be able to take advantage of when Edmonton eventually makes those boneheaded plays? Because if we're not scoring 5-on-5 in the shooting percentage, we need to put a couple more power play opportunities in to give ourselves those chances. And it seemed like last year, like it was just like, okay, we got a power play. There's no chance we're making this in. So we might as well decline the power play. Like it's not going to do anything for us. And I think getting a few more, like getting a little higher tick in the playoffs and having more consistent line play from that third line, I think are going to be the 2 keys. And so far in the last 4 games, those have really upticked and shown positive, I wouldn't say regression, but positive inklings that that's going to continue into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Victor Arvidsson back in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I think him and PLD have looked great together.
Yeah.
I know LaFerriere had kind of a rough game against Vancouver, but I still have high hopes that he can be a solid third piece on that line, especially playing with Arvidsson. But you kind of saw a little bit of that in the Vancouver game. I know once they got the lead, it kind of seemed like they just like stood back a little bit and waited for Vancouver to try to make their plays and rely on Talbot and their defensive structure to win them the game. And eventually they did. But when they were on the forecheck and pushing pace a little bit, you saw the Kings just kind of going in waves at the Canucks. Start with the Kopitar line with Byfield and Kempe, follow that up with Denomore and Fiala, and you follow that up with a player in PL who's looked a lot better of late, and a healthy, rejuvenated Victor Arvidsson. I mean, man, that's three really solid forward lines that the Kings can deploy that we've been waiting for pretty much all year. I know we got a taste of it with Arvidsson early on, but now it seems like he's fully healthy. Knock on wood, stays that way throughout the playoffs, and you can see what Rob Blake kind of envisioned this team to be when he made the trade for PL Dubois. So we'll see what happens with the fourth line and whether he wants to continue running 11-7, 12-6. I mean, I know Carl Grunstrom's coming back, like you mentioned. Randy, he's coming back soon. So would maybe think that if he does come back, he'd probably revert back to the 12-6 format. But yeah, I mean, if you can get those three lines going, and then Blake Lizotte, who's been looking incredible, I think Blake Lizotte's turned back into prime. Blake Lizotte coming back from injury these last few games has looked, I feel like, his best, especially the game against Vancouver. And Trevor Lewis too. Give our hats off to Trevor Lewis. He's actually been playing pretty good hockey of late, I think. So if those four lines can continue playing the way they're playing, I like their chances.
I think Grunstrom's an interesting player to talk about in this upcoming series because as much as we want a player to have skill and before grit, I think grit is necessary, especially against a team like Edmonton. And I know Grunstrom doesn't drop the gloves, but he's a nasty person to play against. He's always in your face. I think he led the team in hits last year. He was second behind England this year until he got injured. And so, that type of a little bit of nastiness on the ice, and not to mention, I think his average shooting percentage last year was around 9%. Like he can snipe some from the fourth line and get a little bit of offensive skill. And I know, a lot of people don't really like Tonka as much as I do, but I think he's kind of a perfect player, a necessary player against an organization like Edmonton.
I agree. I was actually just going to say him right before you did. I think he's an interesting player to get back for a couple of reasons. One, he brings that kind of physical presence, but this is a guy that can shoot. This is a guy that can carry a high shooting percentage. I'm pretty sure, and I'll double check this here in a second, but that he's been somebody that's carried, shooting percentages into the double digits and into the teens even. So you're talking about a team that can't score, doesn't carry a high shooting percentage. And if you can get somebody like this on the fourth line that can maybe chip in a little bit, yeah, I do think that's something that's worthwhile. And I do think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the 12-6, 11-7. I mean, obviously, I think the 11-7 has certainly had its positives. But I think, it's hard pressed to see them. Again, they've established they're not playing Arthur Kaliev if they don't have to. But will they play Grunstrom? That becomes the question. How do they view him? Because we really don't know under Hiller, right? Like we haven't seen a healthy Grunstrom with, since Hiller's taken over. So I'm interested to see, kind of where he slots in here, if he slots in.
It'll be interesting to see when he comes back, because what if he doesn't come back at all until game one of the playoffs? Like, do you risk?
He'll be back. He's going to be back. He could join the team on the trip. He's already with the team right now, so he could be back. Yeah. I don't think he'll be back next game, but soon. He
skated today in a non-contact, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
with the team.
Yep.
Too, which is
there's about 10 games left. I thought we were like right around the corner. Yeah. So.
It feels like it, right? I think a lot of us too, it's like Joe said, like the playoffs it's like 95, 97%. It's pretty much going to happen. So especially with what's happened the last few years, the regular season. And I remember I was thinking like, man, I used to get so excited over wins like this in Vancouver the last few years. Like those felt like such big wins in the end of the regular season. It's like now, like Give me the playoffs. Give me the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't really care anymore. Like, it's
Yeah.
gotten to that point. But I mean, I think now we'll talk about the Edmonton game a little bit, but I think this is a pretty big game in terms of the standings because home ice advantage is still right there.
They're not catching them. Does that mean? Do you think they're catching them?
Edmonton,
Yeah.
3 points behind. Win tomorrow, 1 point. It's
possible.
It's not.
And
Okay.
we have the easiest schedule. I mean, we just said that.
That's the thing.
Easiest schedule in the NHL. 32nd hardest schedule.
The last 4 games the Kings have all at home.
Fair enough.
What did I say? Minnesota,
Ducks,
Chicago, and Anaheim,
and yeah,
Winnipeg. I think.
I stand
Calgary.
corrected. I stand corrected. This game is bigger than I would have originally said because home ice is tighter than I thought. Fair enough. Touche. Yes.
And although we don't play, we haven't played great at home this year. It's better than playing up.
You
at
still
Edmonton.
want it. Yeah. You still want it against
because
Edmonton.
their barn's not easy to go into and play against in that atmosphere. So,
well, especially with the matchups the Kings have to have the matchups that they want against Edmonton. And another thing too to watch with this game is how Hiller matches up against Edmonton. I guess I'll have to go back and watch the first game. But now that he's got like the Lions with Arvidsson in the fold, curious to see how this goes. Even though it is in Edmonton, so I'll last change. But
yeah,
I see this right that they healthy scratched Kane last game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess him and Draisaitl didn't really get into it, but had like a disagreement on the bench that was caught on video. But I don't know. I think Kane didn't like hustle for a puck or something like that, and he was back in the lineup. So I'm thinking it was probably just a message sent.
Well, another thing that's going to be interesting going into the rest of the season is going to be the Kings point leader at the end of the season. So Kopitar's had it for the last 75 decades. And but it's up for grabs this time. So Kopitar's obviously still leading 64 points. Kempe and Fiala tied at 63. So it's anybody's game. I think it's kind of interesting. We brought Fiala in, thought he was going to be a point per game player. He's definitely putting his name in the hat. Probably would have won it last year if he didn't get injured. Kempe is having one of his highest assist totals. And he had in the last 4 games since Arvidsson's been back, tied for the league with 5 points in 4 games, and he started to shoot well. So it's going to be an interesting run down the stretch. Joe, do you have a dog in this race?
Listen, I'm a Kopitar guy through and through. He has been my favorite player since day one. He's not ready to give up that reign. I think it's going to be Andrei Kopitar that finds a way for now the 8th decade of leading the Kings in points. So I think it's good. I'm going to go with Kopitar. And I know you're a Juice guy, so I can see you going Juice.
I love Juice. I think he's heated up quite a bit. Power play, time there. They're going to try to get him the puck on the first line. So you're looking at the last 4 games, according to Natural Stat Trick, 5-on-5. Kempe 1 goal, 4 assists, and 2 primary assists. He's been a part of 83% of his line's points, 9 shots. So I just don't think that Kopitar's shooting 37% in the last 4 games. So I don't think that continues. So I think that you're looking at the way Kempe has been playing and everything like that. I really think that it might be time to pass the torch and give the Swede the nod. What about you, Russ?
Well, I guess since you picked Kopitar, you picked Kempe, I'll go with our boy Kevin Fiala here. And I guess this could be a good time to introduce our new Hockey Royalty shirt and say, let Kev be Kev.
Yeah.
Let Kev be Kev. I don't know if you guys can see. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening on the podcast, we have new Hockey Royalty shirts, and we'll put them out there on our Hockey Royalty Twitter account. But yeah, Kevin Fiala needs a lot more love for how good he's been playing ever since he's been in LA. I know he's had his ups and downs, but man, this has been a player that he's been a guy, as Kings fans, we've been wanting to watch since Ziggy Palffy. So it's been too long since we got a fun, entertaining, electric playmaker like Kevin Fiala. So we had to get some shirts made to kind of represent. I know we've been teasing it up a little bit lately with the Let Kev Be Kev, but yeah, you got to let him be him. So we got some shirts made up. We'll put them out there, and yeah, I'm sure they'll fly off the shelves.
So we listen to you guys. We got 2 XLs. There you go.
Yeah.
Listen to you.
So from small, medium, large, extra large and 2XL. So we heard your guys' we heard the guys out there that wanted the 2XL, so we got it for you.
You know, and in all seriousness, like, he's been incredible, and for all the knock he gets for like his two-way play, multiple models, whether it's Evolving Hockey, Andy and Rono, Jay Fresh, his defensive marks are, dare I say, really good, not just like above average. So, hey, I'm all in on Fiala, and I think this guy needs way more love, way more pub than he gets, because he's just totally flying under the radar, I think, in Los Angeles.
You know what's the thing, too, about Kevin Fiala, and I think it also flies under the radar, is his personality. It's like something that, like, he's living in LA, and I know they're doing those, like, behind the scenes with a couple stars around. Dude, I think he'd be perfect for that, because his personality definitely fits that mold. I know he's got a kid coming on the way. The Jessica Fiala thing, that was great on Twitter or whatnot. But dude, his personality is so good. He plays the game like he's a kid. It's so fun to watch, especially when you go to I go to these practices and I watch him practice, and it's like he's out there just having the time of his life. Always got a smile on his face, and that kind of just translates to the rest of his team. It's such an exciting player, and I'm just so glad he's part of the Kings.
Who, the mustache miracle man
himself? There's a comment here, Dan Parrott, believe Hiller letting Kev be Kev has him responding. And you do wonder, like, there were times when McClellan would, discipline him because he made some mistakes. And, like, you kind of get it. They're really ugly looking mistakes with turnovers and things like that. And you also wonder, though, as a coach, sometimes, like, I've done this, obviously, again, not at the NHL level. I'm not trying to like equate it, but you have a player that you can tell is like a skill player, a little tense, maybe a little afraid to make a mistake. There's another level there. We did it this year with the players. Like, hey, deep breath, go play, have fun again. Like, go out there and I don't know if Hiller had this conversation, but you wonder if stuff like that conversation maybe one-on-one happened with Hiller, where he's like, listen, we need you to be responsible, but be you, be Kev, be creative, be the player we know you can be, and maybe just loosen him up just a little bit. So maybe there is something to that, Dan. I don't know, but I think it's fair to speculate that. But he's just an excellent player that I think needs more love. I think he's just totally under the radar.
I think that teams, when they allow these types of players to be them, you get the best out of those players. I mean, and you take the good with what quote unquote bad, right? And so you're looking at you're looking at like Manny Ramirez, right? Like, yeah, you're going to get 40 to 50 home runs a game. He's going to hit over 300, but he's also going to catch a fly ball, go give a fan a handshake before throwing it in. Like, he's going to go eat something in the clubhouse and be late to being back on the field. Like that's just the type of player he is. But you're going to take the good with the bad. And I'm not saying that, Fiala is irresponsible, but it's like people hound him so much for like the penalty. Yeah, it's an offensive zone penalty. I get it. It's not something that you want to see, but like, are you really like going to be mad at a point per game player, which is what he pretty much is for the Kings, or are you just going to let him be himself? And I think, and not only is he a point per game player, but he plays with so many different line combinations. And then lately he's found a home with Dano, but the first season here, he was playing everywhere. He was playing with multiple different centers. He's playing multiple different wings. He was trying to get him to light it up, and he still almost, didn't get that. So I think it's great. So what we're doing is, yes, Kelly, it does include shipping. So $30 flat. Size is small through 2XL. If you haven't got your More t-shirt, you could do a combo. So you can get a More t-shirt and a Kevin t-shirt for $45 total. Order, you want to contact at hockeyroyalty.com. That's the email. So you're going to email contact at hockeyroyalty.com, and we're going to take Venmo. If you guys don't have Venmo, then we'll try to figure it out another way. But that does include shipping. So just 30 flat. And thank you guys for supporting us, and we're going to continue pumping them out. Once they're out of stock, we're going to go to the next one and pump a new t-shirt out. I know I see a couple people in here saying we should do a 131 t-shirt just to piss off Canucks fans.
Joe will never wear that t-shirt.
So there's
But yeah, we very much appreciate the support, guys.
Yes.
It's gonna we're doing this to kind of help us out a little bit, but also help us get like equipment, and we do all this for free. So, but we love doing it, so we want to continue to do it, and we appreciate the support.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? I would wear a 131 shirt if we can.
Oh, wow. Oh man.
If how about this? If the Kings or when the Kings beat the Canucks in the first round, say they play each other in the first round, we're putting all Canucks players somewhere in that 131. We'll make a good 131 Vancouver themed shirt. Yeah, that'll be good. I'll wear that one.
I love it.
Oh man. So I think Fiala, Kopitar obviously been hot, and you're looking at the natural stat trick right here. Kopitar again, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 total points. Kempe with 5 total. Dubois with 3 in the last 4 games. Byfield there. So that first line has really just been on fire, connecting back at a really high level. You know, we talked about the rolling lines, but you also need your top line to be your top line when it comes to be the playoffs more often than not. And I know, Joe, you're like, I just want to see them playing well. It doesn't really matter the result. But I think the result does matter a little bit. You're seeing them play well. They're getting rewarded for it with the top line, and they're heating up right at the right moment going into the playoffs. And I think you're going to need that playing any team that we're going to be playing in the first round.
Yeah. I mean, I think that top line's been excellent. I mean, and a player we haven't yet really mentioned here, because we've talked a bit about Kempe and Kopitar leading the team in points, but Quentin Byfield, obviously, we've sang his praises on this show all season, pretty much, and he's been really, really good. So I agree, Randon. That line's been big. And listen, as you get to playoffs, again, it looks like it's going to be Edmonton. That line is going to be a line that's out there against one of McDavid or Draisaitl, I'm sure. So that's going to be a pretty big task for them, and we'll see how they handle it. But I'm really pleased with how that line's going right now.
Speaking of lines, we got our sponsor here at DraftKings. So DraftKings, we all know hockey games moves fast, but DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. When the lines come out against Edmonton in the first round, where are you putting your money? Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. New customers can bet just $5 on the NHL and $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The code is THPN. The crown is yours. So let's get into the 131 with Zadorov's comments and what it is like to play against the Kings. And I'll read this here. Zadorov says, I mean, that's their system. Zadorov said, they don't really make plays. They just rim the puck and sit back all game. I mean, it's their goal to don't play hockey and don't let the other team play hockey pretty much. Yeah, it's hard to come back from that, especially when you're down 2 goals. They had 1 extra bounce than we did today, and so that was the difference. And so Joe talked about it earlier, the type of team that we are. It's like you get a couple of lucks here, we get a little bit of shot here, and you start winning some games, even though we're not playing good hockey. Does that quote ring true for how you view the Kings, Joe, or is that a little harsh for what Zadorov said?
I mean, it's a little harsh. It's frustration, from Zadorov. And I listen, as a former player, totally get it. That would absolutely piss me off to play against a team like the Kings and the way they play. It's very frustrating. So I get that. I think that's just frustration, which is fine. I got no problem with that, by all means. Where I'll say it's a little harsh, and Hillard talked about it too. And so he's not wrong in that, they just kind of whack the puck around. We've talked about this. They're not exactly crisp with their zone exits, and they look to fly and catch you off the rush, maybe create a turnover and catch you off the rush. But they're also going well when they are able to establish some in zone. And Hillard talked about this after the game about the forecheck and how important that is. And so I do think that when they do get the puck into the zone, there's a little bit more of like buzzing that they're capable of. Again, they're a little limited with what they can do from the blue line just because of their personnel. So it's just not natural for some of those guys to make runs and kind of jump. We see it sometimes, but it's just not a consistent part of their game per se, because A, that's not their individual game, but B, if things start to fall apart a little bit, the Kings, they want them to retreat. They want their guys to come back a bit and be there and clog the neutral zone. So I'll push back a little bit in the sense that it's the Kings do push a bit more and are on that front foot when they do get the puck and in the offensive zone. But listen, I'm not going to sit here and twist it. Like it's not a fun brand of hockey to watch for the neutral. And, I don't necessarily think Kings fans should care if they win the game. Perfectly fine. I am here for the LA versus Vancouver Twitter wars, especially among media men. I saw Dooley today with a beautiful tweet. And I love it. It's all in good fun. I think it's fun banter. And, the playoff series and who wins it will dictate it. But, I get it. Where if I'm a Kings fan, which obviously I am, if they win the game, whatever. If I'm a hockey fan, which I am, if I'm somebody that I'm not going to call myself an analyst, but like somebody who analyzes the game or tries to for hockey royalty, it's not a lot of fun when you're staying up at 10:30 and watching what I call the sludge sometimes, and you see the shots halfway through the game and it's like 10-9. I'm like, this is just awful. But it is what it is. And this is what I mentioned in the comment in the article with Hiller was, I don't know, because Hiller came in and he's an offensive coach. He runs the power plays. I think a lot of people thought, perhaps us included, maybe some of the offense, he'd do some things more. He's not, but I also think he's like, what's the point? This is what I got. Like, I'm not going to turn, Gavrikov and Anderson and Englund and Moverari into like offensive playmakers. That's just not them. So we're going to stick with the system. We're going to hunker down. He's gotten them. I think they're working a lot harder. I think they're playing a more physical brand, but it's I think he's recognized what they are, and this is how they're going to win with this particular construction. So I get where Zadorov's coming from. I echo those same frustrations sometimes, but I don't know. If it means more stuff on the Twitter, I'm all for it. I think it's be fun.
I kind of equate it to this, and this kind of will tie into LA as well in the new Chargers regime. A lot of people give offensive coordinator Greg Roman a lot of crap for his offense, right? It's a lot of running the football. It's a big back. It's a lot of 3 yards in a cloud of dust and play action. And it's not really a lot of the modern personnel. But if you look at his record, I think his teams average over 10.5 wins per season. And as a Chargers fan and what you've been dealing with, don't you want to make the playoffs and have a team that's it's like so are the Kings winning games? Yeah, we're winning games for the most part. When it's bad, is it really bad? Yeah. it can be. It can be awful, but it's the same thing with those teams. I mean, Greg Roman was a Niners coach. We went to a Super Bowl and 2 NFC championships underneath him in that offensive scheme. So, it's not the most entertaining thing to watch with him running power I consistently, and you're waiting for them to throw the days of Herbert throwing or averaging 28 completions a game are over, because Greg Roman's only had 4 times in his entire tenure a quarterback do that. So it's like, is it the most desirable thing to watch? No. Are they winning games? Yes. Is it the style for everybody? Probably not. But at the end of the day, are you hosting or are you hoisting the Stanley Cup?
Mm-hmm.
And the Kings believe this is the best way to run the team, whether it's beautiful or not. This is what we have. And so why would Hiller change it completely? Like you said, Joe, when we don't have the right pieces, it's like you buy all the ingredients to make spaghetti and then decide to make hamburgers. Like it doesn't really make sense. Right. So yeah, I want to see more hot run and gun and all that kind of stuff like that. But when the 1-3-1 is playing well, when that front man is checking hard and is putting that effort in up ice, not a lot of teams can beat us. When it's executed at a high level, not a lot of teams can beat us. Where we start to get beat is when the system is lackadaisical, and not to mention the other team's skill players are playing at a high level, right? The McKinnons, the McDavids and everything. And McKinnon even came out and said that it's a tough system to play against when it's executed well. So, the likely MVP of the league this year acknowledges that it's a hard system to play against when it functions at a high level. So, that being said, it just is what it is. I mean, and fans can like it or dislike it all they want, but that's the team that we got.
I mean, I have to say, I hate the 1-3-1. That's no secret. I hate watching it. I mean, the game against the Islanders was one of the most boring first periods I've ever watched in my life. It was like one shot on goal in the first 6 minutes combined. It's like, what are we doing here? I hate watching the Islander games, and I can imagine that's how people feel about watching the Kings. Well, you know what I like? I like winning. So if that's what's going to win us games, then yeah, all for it. Then this is what we got. So yeah, it's not the most fun thing in the world to watch. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. I can think that that's no secret. So, but yeah, I mean, for the Kings, it's what's won them cups before. I mean, so if it's what they got, and I love the way you put it, Brandon. If you buy ingredients to make spaghetti and you decide to make hamburgers, you're not going to make hamburgers. So, I mean, this is the way that the Kings are going to win games. And the thing with the Zadorov comments, that kind of it's actually very. I mean, I would have, if I'm Rick Tocchet, I'm probably pretty pissed that he's making comments like that, because what it shows me is that they don't have a strategy in place to beat the 1-3-1. The Edmonton Oilers clearly adjusted and had a strategy in place to try to overcome the 1-3-1. You didn't hear McDavid or anybody like that talking about how, the 1-3-1 isn't hockey or anything. They talked about we got to generate speed up on the forecheck and try to get the guys in the retrieval. They understood what they had to do to get the job done against the Kings 1-3-1, and that's why it's like, man, if Vancouver is making comments like that, then yeah, let's play Vancouver in the first round, because what I saw last year against Edmonton in the playoffs was a team that adjusted, and Jay Woodcroft, they knew the Kings were going to run a 1-3-1. I think I've mentioned this on here before, but they had defensemen who, when they had the puck and the Kings had that 1-3-1 sitting in front of them and working a forecheck at all, that defenseman would just sit and wait and wait and wait for those wingers to generate speed up on the sides along the boards. Then they throw the puck in, and you have those speedy wingers going in at 100 miles an hour, crashing down on the defenseman, going it back for retrievals. And the Kings had a hard time getting out of their own zone because of that. We talked about size being an issue, and that was partly part of the reason, because they had that speed that the Kings just couldn't overcome. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how this 1-3-1 system will work in the playoffs, especially if it seems like they're going to play Edmonton again, because Edmonton clearly has a strategy to try to overcome this 1-3-1. But I'm wondering, with Hiller in the mix, I think he's I'm hoping that he's a little bit more he kind of realizes what's going on. He's able to adjust a little bit more on the fly, because I think in the game, especially the game at home against Minnesota, we saw them play a little bit harder on the forecheck in the first period, and it definitely kind of worked to their advantage to get the lead really early on, and they kind of sat back and took advantage of the opportunities that they were given to them the rest of the game. So I'm hoping Hiller doesn't end up sitting back in the 1-3-1 if they ever go down a couple goals, like in the third period. I hope he gets a little bit more on the front foot and tells his players to get a little bit more aggressive in the forecheck. But man, I mean,
if he does, Cy is going to gouge his eyes out, according to him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think we saw that. Wasn't that in the St. Louis game? They were down a couple and they just started sitting back in the 1-3-1. It's like, oh God, what are we doing here? But I mean, yeah, it is what it is. This is how it's going to win the Kings games. And hey, if it works this year, then we're happy, and their Kings are going far. If it doesn't, maybe there's some big changes coming, and we see the Kings running a whole new system in the future. But for now, This is what we got.
I mean, Randon, you asked the question earlier about, all the talk was like, how do you get past Edmonton? And did the Kings do enough? Do we think they did enough to get past Edmonton? I mean, I don't know how, and so going back to the 1-3-1 for a second too, it's like we've seen this fail already in the playoffs twice, 2 years in a row now. The Kings haven't won a series in 10 years. So we've very much seen this not work against a really good Edmonton team. So to answer Randon's question from earlier, do we think the Kings have done enough? All they've done is double down on it, right? They didn't do anything to add skill to the defense. They doubled down. They re-signed Gavrikov. They signed Andreas Eglin to basically be Alex Edler 2.0. So they've doubled down on it, and now obviously the Dubois addition adds a lot more depth down the middle, and that is a huge, potentially huge, piece come playoff time, right? But I don't that's not going to change their kind of overall scheme. So I don't know, Randon. I think they've doubled down on how they want to play and what they think. Now I don't know. I say they. I don't know who. I'm sure it's a collaborative discussion between blank, the management team, coaches, etc., of how they think they can win. They made the determination. Let's run it back. Let's bring back Gavrikov. Okay, Edler's retiring. Who's the next best Alex Edler? Bang. Let's get Andreas Englund, right? They're running it back. And you can't be serious that we think that this is going to be good enough to beat Edmonton. Now, hey, if it happens, it happens, and that's great. But
they didn't change. But they didn't change coaches. They didn't do any of those types of things. So, like, you didn't expect McClellan to make a system change. You didn't.
No, that's
they
what
would
I'm saying.
They would have to clean house. Like, they would have to.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily, because again, they and I think one of the articles I wrote in the offseason, which nobody liked, was they need more skill on the blue line. This was before the Gavrikov resigning. This was before the PLD trade. It's like,
I guess they did have an opportunity. Yeah, the England didn't get signed yet. Yeah,
you could have, you could have signed a like I use the name Eric Gustafson as an example. The guy was signed for like league minimum. Go look at his numbers. Go look at the production he's put up as a puck moving defenseman. Now, again, don't know if that was something that he would have wanted, but that type of player, they didn't want to add skill to the back end. They didn't have to trade. I mean, they didn't have to trade Dursey, I guess, in order. A lot of dominoes, right? To get PLD was their big goal, but like you maybe didn't have to re-sign Gavrikov for that money either, and you could have gotten a defenseman that's a little bit more. And so there's your clue. Like, if they were going to change something, it could have been there. The second they re-signed Gavrikov, they're doubling down on left D, right, like defensive D, offensive D, defensive D, offensive D, defensive D, offensive D.
Balance,
it's like, it doesn't have to necessarily be that rigid. But so you're right, Randon, they would have had to really change some things, but there was that opportunity, that brief opportunity. If they wanted to go in a different direction style wise, they could have. And they chose to, again, like I said, all they did was double down. And I don't know how doubling down, it's the same thing. It's like,
Russ, do you believe the 1-3-1 would look better with better pieces or different pieces?
No, I think, I think like Joe said, they got the right players to run the system that they're running. I mean, Andreas Englund could be better, could be a better lefty, but I mean, he's not being asked to do a whole lot, especially in the system. He's just asked to stand there at the blue line and don't let them get in the zone. and hope Jordan Spence makes a nice play, so that way you don't have to have the puck in your stick. So that's really all it is. But the thing I'm curious about is, like, I wonder who's really making these decisions to implement this system.
Sure.
Is it Rob Blake? Because I think, Joe, you've talked about it. Like, he's the one acquiring these players that fit into the system. So that's why I say he's bringing in the best players to run the system that he's running. He
has the players, right? He's got those mucking type of forwards and wingers, especially. He's got the big defense. He's got the big guys down the middle, real quick aside. Everybody talks about size. I want my size on the middle. I love the strength down the middle. So just a real quick. So that's why I was a big fan of the PLD signing anyways. I like having big, strong centermen down the middle that can kind of dictate both ends of the ice. But yeah, like this Gavrikov is tailor-made for this system. I think I said it when the Kings signed him, like, or if he was going to hit UFA, I don't remember now. Like, go cash in, big guy. Like, full marks to you. Like, this was a perfect fit for you, and it's a perfect fit for the way the Kings want to run the 1-3-1. It's a match made in heaven. And again, like I said, they've made Andreas Englund, competent. at times by allowing him to play in this system. So I just pulled up his his player card on all three zones, but again, his zone entry defense it's actually really bad considering they play a 1-3-1. But like any left D is going to have strong metrics in terms of entry denials. Like Sean Dursey had really good entry denials because it's just the way it allows for that. Right. So they've got the right guys to play what they want to play. And I think it's the $1 million question, Russ. Like, who loves this so much in the organization? This is what we're doing.
You have to look at like just in the near future next year. I mean, there's been talk that they want to re-sign Matt Roy, which is great. Obviously, I love Matt Roy. I hope he's a King for the rest of his life. So they figure it out. But I mean, you have Brent Clark and Jordan Spence still in the system. So there's got to be a way to figure out to get at least if you still have them. I mean, there hasn't been a trade or anything. You have to figure out a way to get both of them in the lineup at some point. You can't just continue to wait. And I'm totally fine with them keeping Brent Clark down in the AHL for the rest of the season. I don't think there's really
at this point. At
this point, like there's no need to bring him back up. But yeah, next year it's got to be full. Like the Clark train's got to be full steam ahead, right? Like that's got to be.
Do you agree with like? They've been pretty open about like, we want Roy back if we can do it. Do you think, because my theory is, yes, bring Roy back. Fine. Trade Gavrikov, right? That's your way to do it. Do you think that is on the and I know Gavrikov's got a no move clause. So that makes it tricky. But do you think that is, here's the thing though. Well, it's his no move clause.
You got it. Like, who's going to be the GM? That's the thing. If Rob Lick's the GM, Gavrikov's not going anywhere. He's not going to trade away guy you just re-sign and give a no movement clause. He's not. There's no way that's happening. So it's going to be strange because if they're successful, then I would expect like at least like go a couple rounds in the playoffs and maybe at least make it to the Western Conference. Like I've got to the point where you might have to just at least make it to the Western Conference final before. So Rob Blake can keep his job at this point. Like
Western, really? Oh, you're Western.
I think you have to at least see some because, well, I mean, it's hit or miss because I mean, if they're able to beat Edmonton after what's gone on the last few years, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. But then
that was saucy. Now you're backstepping.
I know. It's like, well, because I'm thinking about like how excited I'd be if they did end up beating the Oilers.
But do you think that's a low bar? Do you think to your original point is that a low bar?
Too. It's like okay, well, like what are you really winning here though? You're not. You got a playoff round.
Are we the Leafs? We're going to celebrate first round.
Exactly. That's so. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to stick to my gut here, Randon, and I'm going to say, I think they need to make some noise for him to stick around because, this system, like Joe said, even if they win a playoff round, it's one playoff series win in the last 10 years, and it's boring hockey, but this is what they got now, and we're hoping that they pull it out. But I'm looking for something a little bit more exciting, especially when you got some exciting young players on the back end.
Yeah, I also could think it could be coach speak, right? Like, we would love to have this guy back, and if we can make it work, and all this kind of stuff like that. You know, it's just
fair enough.
It's those types of things. They're going to listen to all kind of offers. They're going to do whatever is best for the team. If they wanted him back, he would have been re-signed already. Like that's just my opinion. Like, look at all the other extensions that happened. Like Mikey Anderson's extension wasn't that middle of the season, right? True. So like, if you know he's in your future, it gets done beforehand. I think.
Dude, sorry, Randy. Imagine if they don't go anywhere in the playoffs and he walks. Like that's going to be.
Well, that's what we talked about at the trade deadline. Like they doubled that.
Yeah. We were okay with that. I think we were okay with that. Like I know
you were. I mean, I wasn't.
You weren't. Fair enough. But like, that's not a great scenario, right? But if we're being honest, Matt Roy on this team gives the Kings a better chance to win in round one, unless that trade was somehow a hockey trade that I find it hard pressed to believe that they'd find somebody to improve that enough. So I was okay with not moving Roy because the Kings are still better with him. And he gives them the best chance to win and win a playoff round. So I'm comfortable. You will not hear me complain in the summer if on July 1st he signs elsewhere after the Kings have been eliminated in the first round, I will not complain about it. I will wish him well. I will understand it from the Kings' point of view. I will. It may look like the wrong decision, but like if you go back to the context, you have to understand why. Like Matt Roy is a very, very good defenseman, and the Kings would have taken a shift in like too much for them to deal him. So I can't be mad at that after the fact if I was okay with it before.
Thinking about it now, I wonder if the NHL will take a page from the NFL with compensatory picks.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of gotten into that a little bit more now that Chargers have a new GM, learning a little bit more. Last GM didn't do anything about that, but
I don't even know what that is.
So the new CBA is going to be interesting with the NHL. They got a lot to talk about. LTIR. I mean, there's some stuff to discuss here.
So when the team in the NFL loses a free agent, so so the Jaguars lost a free agent. He goes to the Titans and signs a massive contract. Well, the Titans get a compensatory pick for losing talent, and most of them are back of the third, back of the fourth, back of the fifth.
Okay.
So you get extra picks for like minority coaching signings, but for the players, it all depends on how much money you lost during free agency versus how much money you spent. So now if the Jaguars go and counter that move by signing a big free agent to counter the money that another team spent on a player, then the pick doesn't really amount to that much, right? So it just kind of depends on how that works for them. But the Niners got 3 new picks last year for people leaving and signing somewhere else, So I think it'd be interesting because then the team doesn't have to. It's like then
it's not as much of a loss. Yeah.
Yeah. So like if you got a 4th because Roy signs a 4x5 elsewhere, okay, well then it's just an extra pick there. You don't have to worry about the trade for a UFA or anything like that. I brought it up because somebody else brought it up online. I mean, they also could get a low-level pick for trading his rights away or a sign-in trade or something like that. If a team really wants to go out there and get a Matt Roy, because I believe he is either 1 or 2 of the youngest right shot D available in the offseason, if they wanted to get ahead of the game and have his rights in hand, not necessarily for an 8-year contract, but have the rights to negotiate that deal, the Kings could get a little something. It's not going to be a first and a major prospect like we gave up for Fiala, but a 4th or something like that for the rights. I don't think that's out of the question if a team really wanted to go out and get their guy.
It's a good shout too, because right shot D are very much something teams are after. So boy, if you're Matt Roy, man, cash in.
He's gonna get paid.
Good for him.
If he sticks around with the Kings, it's because he's taking a pay cut, and everybody should go buy a Matt Roy jersey.
I mean, selfishly, I hope he leaves and gets his money, so that way I can get Clark Boy.
I know there's been some discussing, but I guess I ask you guys: Kings have enough money to sign one player who's resigning, Roy or Arvidsson?
Roy.
Nobody.
Nobody.
No.
Come on. You don't want either one back?
I mean, I don't think I heard you guys call podcast last week. I don't think Arvidsson's taking a $3 million deal unless he wants. I think he wants to play for a ring, right? He hasn't won one yet. I don't believe.
Yeah.
Or play for a trophy. So maybe Arvidsson, he might be more likely to take a 1-year cheap deal, but
injury history too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but Roy hasn't had a big contract yet, really. Like $3 million has been the highest. The salary cap is going up. There's plenty of teams that need right shot D. I feeling like we're going to get outbid for him, and I don't want to do something outlandish. I thought we overpaid for Gavrikov. I thought we overpaid for PLD, and we're like do it again. Especially if we lose in the first round, are you really going to go out and pay Matt Roy and triple up on the same team? Like I think they got to make some moves and. We were so strapped. I mean, you're looking at the amount of money that we're going to have to play Quentin Byfield. I'd rather put that money towards QB and do it 8 by whatever, 7.5 or 8, whatever he could command, than re-sign those guys.
Looking at the list of right shot free agents too, defensemen, Matt Roy is going to get paid. There's Chris Tanev. There's Chris Tanev, but
okay,
he's mid-30s though. He's
Oh, that's
mid-30s.
true.
You know who the best 2 right shot D-men are? Matt Roy. I mean, I'm excluding Chris Tanev because, again, he's 34. So I'll not to say he's not the best one, but just leaving him out for a second. Matt Roy and Sean Walker.
Oh, wow.
So
Can we-
I think it's interesting. I think they're going to need to pay Byfield. I think they need to take a look at, do they want to go the $1 million goalie? If the Kings make waves, is Rittich or Talbot signing for close to the minimum again? Or are they going to go try to get $2 million next year at somewhere else because they're getting playoff exposure, right? Like, I think there's a lot of things to worry about here. And
Talbot's an all-star.
And and I'm not against Roy. Like, I really think, one, he's outplayed his draft stock a billion times, being a 7th round pick. He's done a lot for this team. He's a quality, dependable player. But, like Carter Scores coming here, somebody giving Roy a 6x6, I'm out.
Yes, I'm out. Yeah, I'd be out.
Yeah, so it's like,
Kings would have to be out. I don't even think they can.
And I hope he gets it. Hope he gets it.
And you have a top 10 draft pick who has shown that he can play in the NHL over marinating in the AHL. So, like, eventually you got to play him, like, you got to give him minutes. Like, everybody was sheltering Byfield on the third line. Like, he needs to play third line center. He was doing this and that. He didn't really take that jump until he was forced into first line minutes and gave him more time. Like, I know he's had his struggles in the AHL recently with Clark, but, like, he is the future defenseman for this team. That's what they're banking on. And if you keep sheltering him and don't let him give opportunities, like, he's never going to get a chance to overtake that, like, he's shown that he can play, and the Kings show that they trust him. Like, he played 9 straight games while Spence was on the bench or something. So I just think it's time to pass the torch. And I'm a firm believer that you can't just, like, keep your players so close because, you have emotional towards them. Like, I'm more along the New England Patriots way. Like, oh, Vince Wilfork, you're a free agent. Peace out. Like, we're not going to pay you top dollar in the market, right? So, that's just kind of how I view it. There's always going to be players. Roy is a quality player. He's not a special player. And there's going to be other players that you can get for cheaper, or being Clark and Spence. I don't know. That's kind of how I view it.
Fellas, I'm about to remake our D-core because I'll trade Gavrikov. You want Roy to walk too? I'm going to sign Brady Shea. There's your second pair lefty. You've got Spence and Clark bringing in there. They can fill in the right side. And then you go out and you find your keep forgetting Englund is signed for another year.
I was about to drop that grenade in there somewhere, but I was waiting for the moment. But I saw your face light up when you do it. And I was gonna say, like, I feel like we say this every year going into the offseason, but like I would say, like, barring obviously what happens in the playoffs, but this has got to be one of the more fascinating off seasons for the Kings in some time. You have some, like, last year was a little bit. Last year was like we were talking a lot about, like, oh, what's Velarde's contract going to be, and then pretty much everybody was still around, and then obviously the PLD trade happened, and then everything kind of fell into place. But I mean, now you don't even have a goalie signed next year. You don't have a coach signed for next year. like it's going to be so cool. Like, there's going to be a lot going on.
You have your top prospect needing an extension.
Exactly. Your best young prospect needing an extension. I mean, man, there's a ton.
And who's making the decisions?
Exactly. Who's going to be making? So that's the thing too. Is, like, we're talking about re-signing Matt Roy and re-signing Arvidsson. Like Rob Blake probably has a strategy in mind, but is he going to be the one that's going to be making those decisions? We could see, if we're talking about, we talked about the 1-3-1, like, we could see just, hey, a new GM come and say, hey, Brant Clark, you're going to play on the left side. That's going to be our defensive core next year. And we'll figure it out because we're going to be playing an entirely new system. So that could maybe make Joe happy. So
it would. It's
going to be fun summer, I feel like. But look forward to the playoffs first.
Speaking of the playoffs, let's get into playoff opportunities here. And like we've been talking about, 60% chance against Edmonton. There is an 18% chance of Vancouver. And there's also a chance that we play Dallas or Colorado. So those are the major ones there for whoever gets first. And if we drop out of the wild card, Kings do have the easiest schedule. Colorado has the hardest schedule remaining, first hardest schedule. So I don't know if they win that division. I mean, I know they're playing well, but with having the hardest schedule remaining, you might see them fall back a little bit. So chances are Dallas wins that, Vancouver wins here. So I have a feeling that Vancouver, Edmonton, and Dallas are the most likely opportunities. We've said this ad nauseum. I think Vancouver gives us the best chance to win. But what do you guys think as far as that goes? Do you kind of want to beat Edmonton out of spite, or do you really just want to win a playoff series and get some momentum going?
Oh, I mean, I kind of just want the Edmonton thing just to get over with. I feel like it's like what it's inevitable, right? At this point, I mean, there's percentages out there, and it seems like there's still a real decent chance that they could play either, like you said, Vancouver or Dallas or Colorado. Yep. So there's still a ton of variables out there. But I mean, you just kind of look at the standings. I mean, it seems like every day you wake up in the morning, you check the standing, it's like Kings and Edmonton right there next to each other. And I feel like Kings fans just kind of got it in the back of the mind just to kind of get that mental fortitude ready to face Oiler fans and the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl once again in the playoffs for the third straight year. So, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say I don't like their chances, because I think I said this last week, Joe, when we were talking, that I really like their chances against Edmonton, to be honest with you. Even though they've been outscored, I think a total of 4 goals last year at 5-on-5. So the 5-on-5 system, or the system that the Kings play, didn't really work too well against Edmonton. But I mentioned that the penalty kill for the Kings has been the best in the NHL. And if you can shut down that Oilers power play and really limit a lot of the opportunities that they can get there and scoring chances, then I really like the Kings' chances. So I was listening I was watching the Vancouver broadcast and in the last game against the Kings, and they had Justin Williams in the studio, and he was asked this question about on the Vancouver side, like, who should Vancouver want to play? And he brought up his time with the Kings in 2012 when they were the 8th seed. He said, "Hey, we didn't care who we played in the playoffs. We just wanted to be the 8th seed. We just had that mindset that we're going to go in there and beat anybody no matter what." So, I mean, we could talk about, like, we probably think that the Kings have probably a better chance against a team like Vancouver, but you just hope that the Kings have that mindset that they're just going to go into the playoffs and try to beat whoever they can, because they're going to have to face some of the best teams anyway eventually. So yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, the reason I think Vancouver is a better matchup, and I think it comes across maybe as like just constant shade that nobody is a believer in Vancouver like they are, like Colorado, Dallas, Edmonton, if you will. And maybe that's subconsciously part of it. I mean, I do think they're a good team, but I think the difference is they're more likely to get drawn into the way the Kings want to play is where I'm at. Like, I think that they'll kind of like, they'll play that way. Like, JT Miller I just think they're going to be willing to play that way. Whereas we've seen Edmonton, the Kings the Kings system, they're never going to get swept, right? Despite being outplayed, they're going to have a game or two that a couple of bounces go their way, or Talbot steals a game. Like Korpisalo was excellent those first couple of games, if you remember. The Kings had no business being up. I think they're up 2-1, right, in the series.
Yeah,
very close to being 3-1.
Yeah, that was Korpisalo. That wasn't anything to do with anything else other than Korpisalo, really. So like that can happen, especially with the way the Kings play. So like they're going to be in every series it's probably going 6 at least. So like they're always going to be in it. But Edmonton, we've seen this story before. I don't need to see it again. Like I guess maybe the Kings get lucky this time and beat Edmonton. But I don't think they can. Vancouver, like I said, I just think they're a little more willing to actually play the way into LA's hands more than now. And I think part of that's because, well, they don't have Connor McDavid, which is kind of a big deal. They don't have Leon Draisaitl. They do have Quinn Hughes, and he's a problem. He was a big freaking problem in that game. That dude's awesome. I just don't know that they have the right crop of forwards skill-wise to get through that system, where like Edmonton, they've got, Bouchard's excellent, and Ekholm's excellent. And for all the deficiencies with the rest of their D, I think that they are good enough to get. Where's 97? Right? Where's 97 or 29? We'll let them get into the zone, and then when you also got guys like Hyman, who's over 50 goals, Nugent Hopkins can play. They've added Henrique, Perry's there, obviously Kane. So they've added some depth to this team. So I definitely think Vancouver is a better matchup than the Edmonton Oilers. I don't want any part of them.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas, we've won one game against them in the last 4 seasons. So
I don't want to see Dallas. And they've played, their numbers are pretty good against Colorado, which is interesting. They've kind of played them okay. So I don't know. Listen, I'm not asking to see Makar and McKinnon in playoffs by any stretch. But they played them okay in recent years, although now they've got Middlestat, they've added Walker. So that's a deeper and better team too. So,
well, I think a lot of that is because what you just said about Vancouver is how the same way with Colorado is Colorado will play right into the Kings trap. And like Zadorov said, Brandon, like McKinnon said, echoed pretty much what Zadorov said. They just get so frustrated because McKinnon and Makar are just go, go, go type of players that as soon as they get the puck, they're going to rush up ice and try to maneuver through the neutral zone as best they can. And that's exactly what the Kings want them to do. They want you to go 1-on-3 against the neutral zone trap. So, hey, I'm sure that's why the numbers are so good. And that's kind of why, to be honest with you, as much as I would hate to face Colorado, and I think if I had to pick, Colorado would be my Stanley Cup champion right now, I'd much rather face them over a Dallas at this point, because Dallas just looks like they're such a smart team, such a well-coached team. I feel like they beat DeBoer too. I mean, they're a team that is ready to win, it feels like, and they got Pavelski on their side too. Then I'm sure a lot of the teammates there want to get behind him because they want to win him his first cup. And you have Ottinger and net too. I mean,
and they've got the D-men. You've got 2 elite D-men in Heiskanen, Harley that can make those plays, and also you've got Rupe Hintz who can absolutely fly. Robertson, that's a good looking team. Duchesne is having a season, so they've got both. They've got the defensemen, they've got the forwards. So I don't think they're scared about any sort of system, and them being able to get through it. You're right. I guess I would have not thought Colorado would be, but you're right. We've seen them get sucked into it a bit. So I wonder if there would be that adjustment from them. I can see I can see the Kings winning game 1 and Colorado getting really freaking frustrated, and then we'll see how they're able to adjust to that.
Do you think, goalies can steal series? Don't you think also Colorado has the weakest goalie out of that team?
Colorado, that was as much as I love what they did, I love Casey Middlestat. I love the addition of Sean Walker to that blue line. Really thought they could have used a veteran backup, just somebody somewhat stable, because Gorgiev's having a fine season, and I think he's a perfectly adequate goaltender. I mean, that you've seen them win. Yeah, right. You've seen them win with Darcy Kemper, so they probably don't need a great goalie. So you're right, Randon. He may probably be quote unquote the weakest one, I guess. But
out of Demko, Ottinger, and he's Skinner. I guess Skinner.
You would probably put Gorgiev, Skinner, Talbot, Rittich, put them in a blender.
Yeah.
And if we're being honest, I know the Kings' goaltending has been incredible of late, but in a playoff series, they're going to be facing, depends who you're facing too, right? If you're Gorgiev facing a team like the Kings that shoots 7.5%, might not be that bad of an issue.
Who are you taking right now, game 1 in our net?
They seem it definitely looks like Talbot is their 1A, which fine, but man, I feel like Rittich is playing pretty damn well in his own right. I guess I don't have the numbers offhand, but I suppose it'd be Talbot. But I feel equally the same with either one, if I'm being honest.
I'm the same way. Just think you can start with Talbot game 1. I'd like to see Hiller be a little bit more liberal if things don't go the way he wants in terms of changing the goalies, because I know last year it was McClellan didn't. You just wrote Korpisalo.
And that's I think here I go back to that, and not to dwell on it because it was last year, but you brought in Korpisalo, and then you rotate them every single game down the stretch, right?
Mhm.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Which if don't do that. He needs as much time in your system working with your defensemen and getting their tendencies as anybody. And so to rotate him and then lean exclusively on him in playoffs never made any sense to me.
No.
Are you more in favor of a rotation this year since they didn't go out and get somebody?
I yes, but like I said, I literally could flip a coin and be perfectly fine with either one. So if they're not and again, it looks like I'd have to brush it. Maybe you would know better than me offhand. Like Talbot's playing like 3 to every 4, 2 to every 3 games. So it looks like
Started the last 3, I think, right?
I think so. Like he seems to be like there's not really a rotation here. I don't consider this a rotation. I think he at worst is 1A. Like he's getting game 1, barring something meltdown happening.
It's weird. Like I trust Riddick more in a big game environment. Maybe it just has to do with his nickname.
Big save Dave, obviously.
Yeah, maybe it just has to do with his nickname. But yeah, I don't know. Like we've seen Riddick be able to, maybe it's just because of circumstance, but we've seen him be able to make the big saves when called upon. Not to say that Talbot hasn't, but I don't know. Maybe it's just a me thing.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it goes down the stretch and who they ride. Maybe that'll give us a little tell. But you know, I don't know. It's just really tough with this team, and it's like even though they're playing better, I still don't have that much confidence. Like it's almost like you want to see it in a playoff atmosphere, and I don't know if it's just the disappointment after disappointment.
Dude,
you know,
exactly what it is. I'm telling you, man, because I have the same feeling. Like the way after the Vancouver game ended, like I felt like, why am I not happier right now for what just happened? Like I should be like jumping for joy over this exciting game I just watched. And I'm like, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's like Connor McDavid is at the end of the tunnel just waiting for me. Like, that's not who I want to see. So oh man, 2 weeks away, man. The playoffs are coming. They're almost here. For a couple of shit.
What definitely is here is our shirts. So we got our new shirts coming out. Let Kev Be Kev. $30, sizes men's small through 2XL. You can do a combo style here. Get yourself a combo, $45 combo for a More and Kev shirt. Contact through email at contact@hockeyroyalty.com. Payment through Venmo. Come in, get your shirts before playoffs because we need Kev to be Kev to win this 7-game series. Find all of our articles here at hockeyroyalty.com. Joe's latest article has been a major hit. Go ahead and get that read going on. Follow us at hockey_royalty, at Random Commando 24, NHL Russell, JW Paterino. And for all your rain and prospect knowledge, Kopitar 4 HOF. You want to play some bets on this series? DraftKings code THPN. Ooh, leave it. Great podcast, guys. Always a fun time. Spaghetti, no burgers. Peace out. Go Kings, go.